mid-range to aggro Shaman that TJ and I have been having debate about which one or Sea Giant as the package. Where it was one of those things, if your opponent didn't check the board, great, you got a Grim Rally turn. If your opponent did try to do something to check the board, well, it was only a Microtech controller, or the check to the board was just creating tension, and thus it opened you to a Sea Giant. But we're kicking things off with a Shaman versus Shaman matchup, and A8, like we said, a more mid-rangey to aggressive style of deck. It does feature Bloodlust and Storm Chaser as part of a package in there, so if you stabilize a board, you're able to eliminate an opponent. So, you know, in an open deckless format like this, the threat of lethal is ever present. And it tops out using Cairn, Reign of Toads, Swap Queen Hagatha, and 2 copies of Sea Giant that are packed into there. The rest of it is sort of an overload and stick to the board package with Soul of the Murlocs.
Yeah. And I talked to the players backstage a little bit before they went up, and they both kind of agreed that Justsaiyan is a 51% to 49% favorite in the series. Because of the fact that his tech choices are a little bit better in the matchup, and also because of these Shaman decks. While a lot of the cards are very similar, the cards that aren't similar kind of give Justsaiyan a little bit of an edge in the late game. And A8, in the interviews that we had with the talent and the players earlier on in the week, he said that he's kind of got to cheese some people with this Shaman deck to push it through a lot of lineups. And I feel like this is one of those matchups where you kind of got to have an unchecked Unbound Elemental, or get an early Bloodlust and dodge some AoE, or stick a Sea Giant and hit him for a lot.
Which I don't think is actually too difficult for him to do. There is 2 copies of Soul of the Murloc if you manage to get a wide board state. And Sea Giant, well, I mean, we've seen how Sea Giant works before. It's, you know, there's enough minions on board. It's very cheap and it's very large.
Yeah.
On Saiyan's side with the Control Shaman, you know, he still has that bit of an overload package with the Thunderhead and some overload cards that are in there, but at his top end, we're looking at Hagatha Scheme, Ziliax, Hagatha in general, which A8 has excluded from his quote-unquote mid-range deck, which I will then point out that it is in fact not mid-range because there is no Hagatha. And Saiyan also has 2 copies of Walking Fountain for that big endgame stabilization point, kind of acting as that Reno Jackson-style card, but it also ends up fighting for board. A8 here with a nice early advantage on the Ooze on a Lickum, though.
Yeah, the Ooze on the Lickum is a big deal. Lickum is just one of the most broken cards in Shaman right now. Even though I don't think Shaman is a top-tier class, it struggles a little bit on ladder because it can't stabilize. It can't, like, tech for everything.
Yeah.
You either kind of try and be warrior, try and be rogue, and it's hard to beat both. It doesn't have that overlap. And even in tournaments, I feel like it just doesn't do powerful enough things. It doesn't have as good of board generation as, say, Mage. It doesn't have as good of control tools as Warrior. But it's great in a Conquest lineup because it acts as kind of that 4th deck that allows you to target a specific strategy that you like.
And Saiyan here with an interesting turn on 3, just chooses to do nothing. I quite like this, and the major reason I'm looking at right now is Thunderhead and the double zap in hand. That alone is going to create 5 minions. If he manages to draw Lightning Bolt, the totem actually could be taking up space in this spot. I'm a little bit curious he doesn't use it at all. You know, I think a lot of times it does bait an attack here, but basically just wants to compensate for board space in the most total of ways possible so that no weird totem shenanigans ends up happening by having too many minions on board.
Yeah, and they're just going to go ahead and completely clear up the board here and stick this Thunderhead, which honestly is kind of the bane of A8's existence.
Right.
The one downfall of his deck, I feel, is just the fact that it doesn't really have any card draw or generation. It doesn't run like Farsight, it doesn't have Hagatha, it doesn't have ways to just come back to a game that they've lost the board and they've lost the resource battle.
It definitely, that being said, I think it is quite tough for A8 to just outright lose a resource battle. I think it's a quite long-winded one at that. You know, I'm looking at the Sunreaver Warmage. It's a lone copy of that in the deck, but the battle cry of 4 damage on that card is pretty serious when it comes to tempo and card advantage fights. And Rain of Frogs is a pretty annoying card for decks that really want to make sure that they keep your board very clean. Because what's happening is they're expending their own resources to do it. And so Rain of Frogs just having so much punch packed into one card, I think really makes that a tricky situation for a lot of decks.
Yeah, and I feel like the way that A8 wins this game a lot is by sticking a Rain of Toads, potentially with a Soul of the Murlocs. Because one downfall of Shaman is that it doesn't have great ways to deal with like 2-stage board effects.
Yeah.
It can deal with one with Hagatha Scheme, which can deal with pretty much the largest of board states. But if those all have death rattles, it doesn't deal with the rest very effectively. And so if A8 lands a board of Rain of Toads with maybe a totem or two and a Soul of the Murlocs and finishes the game with the Bloodlust, that's a big opportunity for him to find a win.
Yeah, and kind of looking at it from a top-down perspective because of that, it's one of the reasons that I think that the Shaman deck for Saiyan is tilting the matchup in his favor is right now A8 is in a position where they're essentially playing the same style of game plan, which is more of an annoyance to the opponent until you can deliver like a major swing turn here. But when you match those up side by side, like Saiyan has so much stuff. You know, the fact that he's a step slower gives him such a massive benefit in a long-winded game like this.
Yeah, I agree. And you can see Justsaiyan foregoing the totem up.
Yeah, this one I'm a little...
It's C-Giant. It's almost 100%.
Oh, yeah, there we go.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many matchups nowadays where you don't want a minion on the board that's not really doing anything. C-Giant is a tech card in a lot of aggressive decks with aggressive Shamans, maybe running it about 40 to 50% of the time. And then, of course, Zoo Warlock, which is one of the most popular archetypes in the field. We're going to be seeing that a lot. We even saw it in the first series of the day where Frodan and Brian Kibler were casting.
Here we go, getting aggressive now.
I like it.
I like it too. It's just Saiyan really has a hand that does a number of this style of play here. Scheme is at 4 damage currently. Saiyan probably looking to hang on to Scheme until he can land it on a Rain of Toads, and that's exactly what A8 I think is trying to force onto the side of Saiyan. Is, you know, with the big pressure this turn, sure, like the weapon gets oozed or what have you, but there's still that 4/4 that would be clocking away in the meantime, and Saiyan is always going to be worried about Bloodlust pressure and what it means.
Yeah,
he's always going to be trying to avoid that disastrous situation occurring, so that way, you know, he can stay alive and win the game. So I think in this situation, he's really got his back against the wall where he has to make a choice. Do I want to go for a Hagathis Scheme Ooze style turn? Do I want to overload massively with like an Electra Lightning Storm sort of situation? There's just a ton going on, and I'm not sure what the best course of action here is.
Little time.
All of his plays that deal with the board effectively overload him too much to have an answer to Rain of Toads on the following turn.
Yeah, he's just going to go for it straight up.
Yeah. The only thing that, while it's not a direct answer to Rain of Toads, because he can play his own Rain of Toads next turn and then follow that up with a Lightning Storm, that's effectively his 3-turn plan to answer that potential Rain of Toads.
Yeah, he's also got the option for like an Electra Lightning Storm as well that's backed in there. It's
True.
a lot of stuff to use to, you know, take care of that, but, you know, you have options. Yeah, and I think that's the important thing. So now the really thing to consider is that with A8 playing the Rain of Frogs here, Saiyan has 1 copy of Lightning Storm in the A8's deck. And so that's another thing he has to consider here, is if he goes for his own Rain of Toads and the board gets softened, what does that mean for like the next Rain of Toads? If he spends the Electra Lightning Storm too early, what does that mean for future implications? His main game plan is just to basically be as annoying as possible and not die.
Ethereal Lackey is probably the best in this style of deck. In any control style matchup that runs Lackey, there's not that many. Shaman is one of the only ones. The Ethereal Lackey allows you to get that Lightning Storm, that Hagathis Scheme.
Yeah.
Something that allows you to have that backup board clear or backup control tool if you need it.
And look at how the mana panned out here for Saiyan as well. With 3 mana worth of cards next turn to play with the Lickum and the Ethereal Lackey. 3 mana after this massive overload turn. This is very well managed mana here from Saiyan. I think that's a big benefit of going for the Scheme and the Ooze last turn. It was the most board implication, and it let you have a strong mana turn like this one.
Yeah.
And A8, meanwhile, with the overload, the opposite story.
Yeah, and this is what we talked about, just no real super high value generation in the deck, because he doesn't have Hagatha, he doesn't have that tool to fall back on to generate spells that can win him the game. Without Farsight, he doesn't have the ability to try and cycle through his deck a little bit faster to find those key cards.
Yeah, I think Farsight would be a bit much in this deck, because I think the key cards
it doesn't make sense in the deck.
Yeah, it's like a redundancy deck.
It is a redundancy deck. This deck, like I talked about earlier, kind of just tries to do everything it can to stick a board before turn 10.
It's trying to cheese him.
It's trying to cheese him. Yeah, that's exactly what it's trying to do.
Look at the powerful draws for A8 right now. Cairn, Swamp Queen Hagatha, Storm Chaser I think would be pretty good still. Thunderhead's pretty good. and Sea Giant perhaps can be good. Outside of those, though, A8 is really running short. But he has Saiyan down to 18. Now, the thing I look at on Saiyan's side is there's no shortage of ways to defend himself. Ziliak's still in the deck. Hagatha's still in the deck. 2 Walking Fountains still in the deck. 2 Witch's Brew still in the deck. That is a lot of stuff that puts Saiyan in a massive stabilizing turn. That stabilizing turn is going to lose A8 the game if it occurs.
Which at this point, it kind of looks inevitable with the way A8's hand has panned out. Yes, he has Rain of Toads, but it feels like Justsaiyan has to check for that. He's got his own Rain of Toads, plus a Lightning Storm to follow it up after the board is a little bit softened.
I like going for the Blazing Invocation here. Has a chance to discover Swamp Queen Hagatha as one of the new ones. Makes a 5/5, and you teach it 2 spells.
Or even Shudderwalk, honestly.
It's all grown up to a nice big swamp thing. I don't know. I actually don't know what the name of the token's called.
I don't know either. Swamp Chucklehead.
So TJ.
Out of my swamp, Chucklehead.
Yeah, pretty ugly looking spot. A8 would have loved to see that Soul of the Murlocs on a turn where he's able to stick some minions in play.
Yeah.
The overload management for A8's deck is, I played a bit of this deck on ladder because I actually quite like it. I think it's, smartly built and has a strong game plan. The thing that I found most troublesome, though, is mana management. The overload and the important mana turns just seemingly never lined up. And it was just all the powerful stuff my opponent was doing and the counter measures that I had, just a mana short every single time. Yeah, that's not a good looking turn.
Not at all.
Oh boy.
Yeah. You talked about it earlier, the Lightning Storm in A8's deck. Doesn't want to go too deep into the play into Lightning Storm territory.
Yeah, A8, he was just missing the right tools to get a critical turn. Like anything with critical mass, still missing the Bloodlust at that. Saiyan actually going to take Chef Nomi.
He's just going to play it.
Just wants the big thing in play. Smile from both players.
It's really funny. I talked earlier about how I talked to them backstage a little bit, and I asked them about the matchup. I asked them how they, if they had any trash talk for each other. And both these guys are the most calm, relaxed, soft-spoken individuals. No trash talk will ever come out of their mouths, I don't think. But the only thing Justsaiyan could muster was that he was upset that the makeup artist spent more time on A8 than they spent on him. They didn't think they gave him the necessary attention that he deserved in the makeup room. But this is about as close to trash talk as you're going to get when he just picks Nomi off the Blazing Invocation, plays it in emotes. That's about as aggressive as Justsaiyan's ever going to get.
Yeah, I could definitely say with confidence that I think Hecklebot is more aggressive than Saiyan's ever been.
He's played some aggressive decks in the past, though. Honestly, Justsaiyan, people talk about Hunter Ace and his amazing run this year, but if you remember correctly, Justsaiyan throughout HCT, including tour stops and playoffs and championships, had a 33-match win streak at some point in 2018.
That's it?
Just an incredible run. And his total record, now we talked about Bunny Hopper's impressive run. He had an 85% win rate. That's continuing to grow across the event here. But that was like a 40-game sample size.
Well,
Justsaiyan has managed a 70% win rate, nearly, across HCT in 2018/2019.
Honestly, his run was ridiculous. And it might be one of the most unachievable things in Hearthstone, ever again.
That's a 200-game sample size and almost a 70% win rate. 134 and 62.
The win streak to me is just...
The win streak is insanity.
It was like every other week I looked up and he just won something again.
Yep.
I remember that was going into the champs where he made top 4.
Yep. Just insane.
If A8 had drawn Thunderhead this turn, I think there might have been some potential here. It needed to be, I think, exactly Thunderhead, though.
Thunderhead in and roll high on every Lightning Storm roll.
Yeah, I think that was the one way he could have gotten into this, because he's going to have to Lightning Storm this turn anyway. It does not look nearly as good. Decent, but not nearly as good.
No.
Admittedly, though, Saiyan is under a pretty considerable amount of pressure because of this. So the Hecklebot...
Double Sea Giant still left in the deck, plus a Cairn.
Yes, and I mean, that's the reason Saiyan doesn't want to play Hecklebot in this situation. So how does he, adequately defend himself?
Well, he can clear the board completely with just Lightning Storm and then the attack with the Lickum.
Yeah, so you use the Thunderhead to poke the 0-1, you use Lickum to hit the 2-2, and then you Lightning Storm? Or do you Lightning Storm and no, you use the Lightning Storm post to take less damage, and you use the small minions to finish off the Storm Chaser afterwards. But then A8 has Swamp Queen Hagatha, and that could be a massive swing in this game. One critical card could change this.
Yeah, Rain-a-Toads.
And so here, Saiyan attacking with the weapon first, I'm curious if this is correct. He could mitigate this damage to less.
I don't think so.
Why not? He could Lightning Storm first.
You Lightning Storm first, then what do you attack the weapon into? You'd have to attack it into the 3-4. So this takes one less damage than attacking it into the 3-4. Also, he gets the added benefit of, if he rolls high on the Storm Chaser, he can stick an extra 1-1 on the board.
Sure, I guess my question is a 3-2 Thunderhead any better than a 3-1 Thunderhead?
You'd still have to attack into the Storm Chaser.
Also, does the damage he takes matter in this situation, too? It's kind of semantics, is what I'm getting at.
Ooh.
Witch's Brew with the Hagatha card, I actually don't know if it's repeatable to hand, and I'm curious about that. Because if that's the case, you can use it after you attack minions on board and buy back some value, and then spend your other 4 mana healing minions on board. Don't know. I've never seen that interaction.
Regardless, though, not great options.
Well, Big Bad Voodoo's pretty good.
It could be, but he doesn't have too many great I guess the...
Saiyan's hand is pretty dry.
Drustvar Horror, there it is.
Pretty good upgrade, though. So Thunderhead, I think, might be seeing a 5-drop this turn. I'm curious how many more Overload cards are really left for Saiyan at this point. Both Sludge Slurpers gone. We're looking at both Lightning Storms gone. Yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, both Zaps gone.
Not much of an upgrade. One of my favorite rogue legendaries that is just so low health. Such a cool card. Just
reasonably cool.
It's a cool card.
Adequately cool.
I think it's really cool. I just think 2 health on 5 mana is a little bit weak. And when I say a little bit weak, I mean really weak.
Unless my 5 mana 4/2 is killing a 7 attack or more minion, I'm not putting it in my deck. Thinking about the totem up, but
still mindful of Sea Giant. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
It's a little bit weird this turn because the only other thing it enables is like Cairn into Sea Giant. You know your opponent has the Drustvar, the top 2 spells token. Fork Lightning Farsight.
Oh, nailed it.
Wow. A8, I think, just pulled ahead.
I mean, I think he, honestly, whatever that Drustvar Horror had in it, as long as it had any impact whatsoever on the board.
I mean, that was massive impact on the board.
Yeah, I mean, Lightning Storm 2 would have been great. Even Rain-a-Toads would have been fantastic.
I mean, he just nailed the Forked Lightning. Just like, hit the 2 you want. This is a full clear, 4 minions in play, Bloodlust in hand. Saiyan's at 12. This game, like we talked about gas being an issue. Swamp Queen Hagatha is gas. Ziliax available with Hecklebot now. So you can magnetize the Ziliax onto that.
But still 2 Sea Giants in the deck, and there's really not that many minions.
Yeah, don't have an option, I don't think.
It's very likely to pull a Sea Giant. Pulls an Undead Elemental. Okay, that's...
So now Saiyan, The fact that it pulled a weaker minion gives Saiyan a ton of breathing room in this spot. He still needs to draw out of this because A8's going to have initiative on this turn. But getting 6 extra health on this, having a 6/10 lifesteal taunt up is a massive deal. So looking at A8's deck, Hex, undoubtedly the best draw. 1 lone copy.
Ooh.
Yeah, I'm killing the 5/5. Wow. Wow.
So that's a full board with Bloodlust. He needs 3 minutes to attack through. Justsaiyan would be at 30.
Oh, you're more concerned with value at this point, I think, than you are with Bloodlust being a lethal blow. I think in this stage, A8 really needs to think about the turn, how he pulls ahead, and then lands the Cairn next turn to try to buy the game back. And so attacking with the 1/1 first means he has board space to create an extra 1/1.
Also buffs the Unbound Elemental.
So it looks like he'd rather play the Cairn this turn and perhaps just pass in this spot. I mean, Saiyan's already at 30. Do you need to use Bloodlust in this spot? Now, that attack looked a little suspicious to me.
There is little time.
Hagatha would be the reason.
Yeah, but if you expect Hagatha, I'm pretty sure you're just Bloodlusting and trading all your minions to consolidate
Also,
your board anyway.
A draw of Hagatha's scheme. 1 damage would clear it off. And so A8 is taking into consideration all those factors, is going to opt to just kill off the Heck a lot. Which, I think if you're going to play Cairn, I don't necessarily agree with. But if Saiyan had drawn Hagatha in that spot, you would really regret not having attacked with those 1/1s. I think it's smart. I think A8 realized that, you know what, Saiyan's going back up to 30 anyway. The Bloodlust is probably the most valuable card in my deck right now. I need this to deliver a lethal blow. I think it's smart. When I initially thought it was absolutely Bloodlust, and the more I think about it, I think he's right to hold it.
But the longer you wait, the more time that Saiyan has to draw the big, powerful tools in his deck.
Oh, boy. I mean, that's a true story, but you're not going to kill him with the Bloodlust, and you're not even getting close, I don't think. But you do keep 3/5s.
The problem is, Justsaiyan can keep picking apart this board, and then you're never going to get a 7-minion Bloodlust, regardless if your opponent's at 30 health or not. I mean, after the end of that turn, he would have been at
I wonder.
like 15.
The thing about it is Saiyan's draws are so hit or miss at this stage, which is one of the reasons I agree with A8 in this situation. We're looking at an Earthshock, 2 Witch's Brew, a Hecklebot, a Hex.
But the thing is, his board would have actually been almost better, because he still would have had a 3/5 Unbound Elemental. He still would have had a 3/5 Thunderhead. He would have had 2 1/1s left after trading 3 in.
You're not wrong.
And he would have been able to play Cairn next turn. Now, he would have never had the Bloodlust pressure again because he only has 1 copy in the deck. But it's a matter of, oh, okay. Spellpower Totem roll would allow him to deal with the Cairn immediately.
You'll take Taunt Totems, though. Extra health means live extra long.
And now are you just playing the reduce the amount of stuff on board plan?
Oh, I can't imagine not Earthshocking this Cairn.
Yeah.
I really cannot.
Earthshocking one of the elementals would allow him to completely clear off both of those elementals and limit the board space, the board, to just 2 minions.
The thing, that's worth considering. That's the thing. You know, Saiyan, if he has the time, he might as well think about it. He's very capable and comfortable thinking about those situations. So I absolutely encourage him to take his time in that situation. And he doesn't necessarily need to Earthshock right away. He can wait to Earthshock whenever he'd like because it's a 0-mana card.
Yeah.
It's not like the Cairn's dying this turn.
Yeah.
So now Sea Giant picked up. A8 is starting to find the big top end of the deck. There's still 1 Sea Giant left there.
And that's pretty much the end of his top end. He's only got 8 cards remaining. One of those is a Hex.
Yeah, Sea Giant was the nightmare card for Saiyan to see in that situation as well. He wanted to see one of the weaker draws. That did not show up. Hagatha shows up, though.
So he can isolate the Sea Giant.
Attack the 1/1, attack the 1/1, Earthshock the Cairn, Hagatha. However, that leaves a Sea Giant in play. You are at 34. But now for the rest of the game, Saiyan's draws look much better in that regard. Still 2 Witch's Brew left in the deck, though. That, to me, is one of the big worries. That card is a giant miss right now. Still 2 Walking Fountains left in the deck, though.
2 Walking Fountains.
And so Saiyan opting to say the Sea Giant and a 1/1 is worth less to me, because if the Sea Giant gets set to 3 health, what that means is generating a Lightning Bolt allows me to wipe out the Sea Giant in this situation.
Or just a Walking Fountain to be able to trade over something and then Walking Fountain the Sea Giant.
Correct.
To get that heal.
And you see him almost cringe at the healing totem, like, I was playing for this Lightning Bolt out off the minion I'm about to play. Walking Fountain gets drawn, and so now it's, I mean, at this point, he's playing an A8, you can see.
Oh
my gosh! A huge pickup from the Hagatha! Saiyan, massive lead at this point. Missequenced the attack here, though.
Yes, he did.
He would have a 4-8 in play rather than a 4-7, but I don't think that's going to matter. Saiyan,
it doesn't matter. He's at 30.
Second Sea Giant.
But the problem is, AH just has no way to develop a board.
Yes, and under threat from 8 damage against this Walking Fountain as well. So the Sea Giant's first attack has to attack the Walking Fountain next turn.
Yeah, and if Justsaiyan picks up, let's just say, any card in his deck, which he's guaranteed to.
Imagine if you drew a card every turn.
Yeah, that's a card in his deck.
Wow, major pickup. He drew a card.
That draws a card.
That's 2 cards.
All right, well, okay.
That is easily the weakest card at this point, but there's still a second copy of that left. This game is not over yet. A8 can still win from this position because Saiyan is running out of quality cards. There's a Witch's Brew. There's 2 copies of Hagatha's Scheme. There's an Archmage Vargoth. There's a Hecklebot.
1 copy of Hagatha's Scheme?
Has he used a Hagatha's Scheme this game?
Yeah.
He did. He used it
on
early
the
on,
Sunriver
correct.
Warmage board.
The Hecklebot, however, has gone way up in value at this point. There is no big stuff left in A8's deck. Oh, Feral Spirit gets drawn. Extra stuff is mighty good right now.
Oh, yeah.
And every opportunity to make more minions and keep the board stable is a big deal. And now A8 has so many minions in play that Saiyan needs to be able to wipe the board. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12,
27.
plus 15. A8 can draw for lethal next turn. But what can he draw?
Lightning Bolt?
There's 1 copy of Lightning Bolt left? Is there 2? There can't be 2.
No.
I'd be losing my mind. I didn't think I was going to take notes this game, because I didn't think it was going to go this long.
Okay. Whew.
I don't think you Bloodlust here in A8's spot. And now him holding that, now what do you think, TJ? Do you think he couldn't go long this game? I told you, this deck does not run out of gas. It's good.
You called it an aggro deck.
It is an aggro deck. It's a good aggro deck. I'll tell you what, this is not the Shaman game I expected, but it's the Shaman game I wanted.
So a couple things. Saiyan has 5 cards left. He has a 1 and 5 to draw Walking Fountain. If you don't Bloodlust this turn, Walking Fountain cleans up the 2 3s, puts Saiyan back up to nearly full health, and your Bloodlust just lost a ton of value.
He's going up to 12 either way if you use the Bloodlust this turn. I'm sorry, he'll go up to 11. Oh, so that's an interesting point then. A8 knows that Saiyan's hand is some combination of Witch's Brew and Hagatha's schemes. He absolutely knows that that's the case. So Hex will eliminate 8 damage from this board. You get to heal up for 12 more. I think that's got to be the play. And then you're under threat of 22, so you're still not dead from that spot. But the options are getting thin at this point. You absolutely want to opt to keep the 0 cost 1 because obviously you're going to 30 from Witch's Brew this turn. Thunderhead gets drawn. Big pickup.
The problem is A8's max damage with Bloodlust, even if he plays Thunderhead this turn,
7 plus 21.
it's not lethal from 30.
But Saiyan's got to heal to 30.
He's got to heal to 30, that's correct. And that's why I kind of like the Thunderhead in this position, because it does threaten lethal if he doesn't heal.
Archmage Vargoth, Hecklebot, Hagatha's Scheme, and one more card is left for
Walking
Saiyan.
Fountain.
And Walking Fountain. Those are the 4 cards left. So Hagatha's Scheme doesn't affect really any of this. It wipes a Toad off board. Walking Fountain gets drawn. And so now, that's going to kill some minions. Voltaic Burst, that helps kill more minions. But A8 has ways to fight back against this. Has a Hex for the Fountain. Has Zap plus the Thunderhead. He has ways to keep fighting in this position. Saiyan is not out of the water yet.
So, and the problem for Saiyan is once this goes to fatigue, he has no way to generate anything else, whereas
No.
A8 can just toad him up every turn and eventually kill him. The problem is he's at 5 health and has no way to heal. So he's only got 3 turns once it does hit fatigue. But honestly,
3 turns is enough, I'm pretty sure.
it might be. So right now he has...
And Lightning Bolt drawn now means that a full board is threat of lethal from 30. Excuse me, it would not be because
No.
there's no 2 attack minions in play.
Yeah.
Forgive me.
So right now it's 21 or 22 damage burst.
So we're looking at Zap, attack the Walking Fountain with the minion, roll a Totem,
I wonder.
and hit face.
And Saiyan still has 2 minions left in the deck, plus a Hagatha Scheme. So,
Yeah, the scheme here is starting to become a little bit more impactful because there's 2 1-health minions in play, and this will make a 3rd 1-health minion. And with the Voltaic Burst, that wipes out a lot of the board. So even Hagatha Scheme is a reasonable draw in this spot. This game is nuts.
lethal presented with Bloodlust plus Lightning Bolt. I think that's exactly 35 on board, plus the 21, that's 26, plus the 4 damage from the Lightning Bolt because of the Spell Power Totem. So
right.
if Justsaiyan were to do nothing this turn, he would die. And he needs to know there's only 2 cards left. The odds that he has Bloodlust and Lightning Bolt at this point are pretty high, and I don't think you're going to risk the game for that kind of scenario.
Honestly, I think the way that A8's hand has played out, it's pretty darn close to 100% of the time. You know, it's a hand reading measure that goes into that, but you're pretty darn close to 100%. So I think this has to be the play, and you have to rely on your Hecklebot
I'm almost out of cards.
and whatever you get, the Archmage Vargoth. The Vargoth could be a big deal as well, depending on what comes out of the Hagatha. Ethereal Lackey gets picked up. Major draw for A8. The Stormbringer with 7 mana up. No! Are you kidding me? And look at A8. He's not sure what he wants to do with it because there's a chance. Is there any chance this goes awry with Stormbringer?
3 Baron Geddons, he dies.
So there is a chance that A8 can lose from his own Stormbringer. I'm curious if you need to go for this. There is a Baron Geddon. Saiyan can get a Lightning Bolt from Hagatha next turn.
Cards.
Or Lava Burst.
But it opens the out. Rockbiter Weapon would do it. In fatigue now is A8, but Saiyan doesn't have a way to deal any damage. If A8 cannot kill Saiyan next turn, which he clearly absolutely can, he would lose to his own Baron Geddon.
Wow.
Saiyan needed 2 more damage to win this game. 2.
It would have been the Totemic Smash, I don't know, the 1
Oh,
mana.
Totemic Smash, that would have won as well.
Lava Burst, Lightning Bolt.
It like quadrupled the outs in the situation it was in.
Wow.
But it doesn't matter because A8 has got the juice.
On the very
Massive.
last turn.
Massive damage.
What the?
Insane start to this series.
I mean, at that point, it was just 2 Baron Geddons. that would have lost him the game. One pair getting away. What an insane game. An insane finish. Yeah.
And that game number 1 was nuts. How often do you see a control versus aggro to mid-range Shaman go to fatigue?
Rely on a Stormbringer. Just insane. Absolutely insane. But it's time to get into game number 2 and get a reality check as A8 queues up Rogue. And he does have the Underbelly Fence, Blink Fox, the Hench Clan Burglar, as well as Vendetta.
Yeah, it is running still the massively aggressive version despite having the Burgle package, which I find quite interesting. Typically, when I've seen the Burgle package, it's been a little bit slower of a build and more focused on landing to Togwaggle spot. But to me, that's like a conflicting interest, where like Togwaggle's a big endgame value card. The Burgle cards in general, sort of by nature of them, if you want to build it that way, can be endgame value, although the extra tools and the randomness of it, I think, favors aggression a little bit more. And that's one of the reasons I like A8's Rogue deck so much. It caps out with the 2 Waggle Picks Greenskin Leroy. There's no Myras in the deck because your hand's going to be cluttered with extra cards from Blink Fox and the Hench Clan Burglar. And you get Underbelly Fence as just a strong minion to help you fight in that mid-stage, so you can find that lethal pressure later on. You know, sometimes you don't get to use Waggle Pick for the ideal scenario. You don't always get to bounce a Leroy and deal extra damage. When that's the case, using Underbelly Fence to just continuously fight for board while your minions chip away damage, I think is a really big benefit that this deck has.
And one thing that it still does have is Evil Miscreant.
Yep.
And with the coin, fantastic play.
I think Evil Miscreant as a 1/5 is just an absurdity of how good it is.
Job's done.
It just seems like it never dies.
Yeah.
Now, I will say that against Shaman, I do feel like A8 really has the clock against him for a couple of reasons. Number one is the damage potential is very limited. You typically need like Shadow Step or Waggle Pick with Leroy to have massive, massive burst turns. And there's no Togwaggle at the top end, and there's no Myra. So if he runs out of resources, he's just completely out of them. Looking over at Saiyan's side, the 2 copies of Acidic Swamp Ooze and the 2 copies of Hagathis Schemes, plus having the Hecklebots in here, there's not really a way for A8 to straight up answer a Hecklebot in a favorable manner. It's always going to cost 2 actions in some way.
Yeah.
And so because of that, Saiyan, with Walking Fountains and Witch's Brew, if he's able to just go toe-to-toe on the minion front, he's going to easily scale to the end game and find a stabilizing turn versus A8.
Yeah, it does sacrifice some aggression in order to fit this full kind of Burgle package in. While he is running that middle of the road, like you talked about, still with Waggle Pick, still with Greenskin, he does sacrifice the South Sea deckhands for a little bit of extra burst. He does sacrifice saps to be able to get through big stuff and maybe deal with the Hecklebot a little bit easier to push through for lethal damage.
Yeah.
So he does, err on the side of value when it comes to this versus the full-on aggressive variation of Rogue with the full Pyre package plus Myras.
Thunderhead's certainly going to demand some attention this turn. Pretty easy to do when you have Vendetta in hand.
Yeah, and that's a lot of just good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, that's Rogue right now. It's a lot of good cards. I honestly think if you had, toned back the 3 most powerful cards in Rogue, it might still be the best class. It is just so incredibly strong. Now, that being said, it does have vulnerabilities. And that vulnerability, I always have trouble pronouncing that word for some reason. If you just blow up their stuff.
Vulnerability.
And then, I'll pronounce it that way from now on. If you just blow up all their stuff and then have ways to get yourself out of burst damage range, that's a really clear path to victory.
Yeah.
Wow.
Ooh.
That's a way to deal with Hecklebot.
Light Nozzle Crawler, it's 2/4 with the Death Battle, summons a 1/1 Poisonous with Rush.
Too soon.
Nice maximization here from A8. Gets in the raiding party here, goes to 9 cards and chops the board down. So Saiyan under some pretty massive pressure. I mean, it built up just from a couple cards, and right now board clears are not really necessarily card advantage tools. They're not really waning A8's resources.
Yeah.
He's more testing you, like, do you have a way to stop this right now? In Saiyan's hand, it's well equipped to fight for what's going on, but it could very easily run out of resources. And so right now, I think A8 is just at a pretty massive advantage.
I would say so, and the funny thing is, Justsaiyan built his lineup with Rogue at the forefront of his mind. we talked to him before the tournament began, and we talked about his practice and what he was trying to do with the limited amount of time that he had to settle on the lineup. And he said the 2 decks that were on his mind the most were Warrior and Rogue, obviously. And he said he chose for a strategy that was more to soft target Rogue and ban Warrior because of the fact that he felt he will never get efficient enough practice to try and beat Warrior, just because the amount of time that it takes to play matches against Warrior.
Yeah.
So
Honestly,
he said, for the sake of time, that's why he decided on a ban Warrior strategy, was because he just didn't feel confident he'd get enough practice in with how long the Warrior games were.
Games of Warrior take a long time, and in a lot of turns, it's demanding of technical play. So if whether you're practicing against yourself or against a trusted teammate or partner, it's going to take time to get those Warrior games done. And honestly, that's a perspective that I had not really ever considered before. Yeah. It was just the sheer amount of time it would take to refine a lineup against Warrior. You would almost have to dedicate to it.
Well, we never really had as big of a tournament like this soon after a set release and a rotation.
Right.
So it makes sense when you think about it, especially since these players want the most refined lists possible. And in order to get a refined list, you need a huge sample size of games. And it just wasn't possible with the time given. But my overall point with that being, if one of the decks that he pretty much looks like specifically tech to beat some of these more aggressive lineups like Zoo and Rogue, if he can't beat it, that spells a big problem with this lineup. And Muzzy, Justsaiyan's teammate, also very close. They might even be 120 cards for 120 cards, same lineup.
I believe they are, yes.
Went 1-1 in his group stage. Justsaiyan's got to be thinking, maybe we didn't make 100% the right read. Granted, they have different groups, but not super promising of a start for the lineup.
Yeah, well, I think in this game, you know, Saiyan having the Hagatha scheme and then having backup here is really the win condition. Like right now, Saiyan is, I'd say, pretty darn terrified of Leroy Jenkins coming into the mix right now. But the gist of these styles of control decks is in the same way that aggro decks want to, you know, put you to the test and say you have to have a way to deal with this. Saiyan can almost do that right back. He can put A8 to the test and say, well, you have to deal with my life total. You have to have Leroy.
Yeah.
And if A8 doesn't have Leroy in this spot, and even if he does, some percentage of the time it doesn't work. So I think Saiyan is actually in the clear here with the mana management, has Hagatha lined up for next turn, and is probably going to be able to stabilize in the face of this pressure.
Yeah. That's what the deck is designed to do. It doesn't have those super late game fatigue cards as we saw in the very last game. Doesn't have a Lysiana. He is banning Warrior, so he realized that that's not really an option for him to try and go for.
Right. I mean, really, it's like this is the antithesis of what Roger decided to do, where he was going to ban his opponent's best aggressive deck versus the lineup and hard target Warrior and say, I don't think you have anywhere near enough to deal with this. Justsaiyan is banning out Warrior and looking at the aggro decks and going, honestly, they all kind of operate the same. If I just build my decks to beat those, I have a really good chance.
Yeah. Funny thing is, he's also trying to beat those aggro decks with aggro decks. He's got two like very lean, very early game focused aggressive decks with his face-oriented Rogue as well as the Zoo Warlock that I talked about as one of my favorites in the field.
Yeah. Now, I definitely agree that that's what he's done, and I agree that's what he should do as well. If you look at Saiyan's tournament performance throughout this entire year, it has thrived on the fact that he has preyed on other players in control style or in aggro style mirror matches. It's one of the ways that he is absolutely, undoubtedly the best.
Muzzy, very similar.
Yes. I mean, they're number 1 and 2 in points, and they thrived on beating players in those scenarios.
Yeah. Muzzy did end up getting the points leader position, but that was only because Justsaiyan, who was the actual leader in points, got a qualification from a championship, which takes precedence over the points leader. So
this is an interesting turn I want to talk about, where I have been in this exact situation a couple times, and what I have found is when I play Hagatha, it means a second waggle pick opens me to Leroy being a powerful card to end the game. I think in this situation, Saiyan is supposed to use Walking Fountain and Zap, wipe out the 2 3/3s with the Walking Fountain, and save Hagatha to follow up when your opponent has to deal with the Walking Fountain afterwards. In this situation, A8 knows that minion pressure is not going to get there in this spot and that it needs to be exactly Leroy. He may opt to forego development here, chip away with the dagger, and then just hope that he draws Leroy for the win.
I would agree with your line of play if he didn't have Witch's Brew in hand. because Witch's Brew, he's got checks for both scenarios. If A8 decides to not play minions to play around Walking Fountain and just plays Waggle Pick to set up for the Leroy, he Witch's Brews back up to a health total. If A8 tries to go for the minion pressure line, then he Walking Fountains back up for that line of play. So I would 100% agree with your line of play if he didn't have the Witch's Brew, but that gives him that checks every box kind of scenario.
Going up to 16-2, you can also die to Leroy Shadow Step, Leroy Prep Eviscerate in that spot. If A8 drew Leroy there, he won the game. If he had gone for the Walking Fountain play, that wouldn't be the case.
It's a very fringe case scenario to play around.
Oh, yeah, Leroy Shadow Step Eviscerate. What rogue's ever done that before? This is basically the first tournament we've ever seen Leroy Shadow Step Eviscerate.
Well, 4 cards is quite a substantial amount to play around, especially since he has a read on at least 2.
Yeah, a partial read. I mean, he does have the hard read on 2 of them, at least.
And probably a soft read on more.
I like your point, though. I mean, your point about the Walking Fountain was really good. And the Witch's Brew.
Thank you. Your point about the other stuff was really good.
Well, you showed me up, and so I just decided I was going to crank it up a notch and be like, oh, TJ's going to show me up, huh? Listen, host. I gotta.
Just saying, it's a next level player, and he knows that Leroy Prep Eviscerate plus Shadow Step is not in the hand. He's got to check for everything.
Look at his face right now. He's reading him like a book. Grim Rally's a little interesting. Honestly, A8 needs to squeeze about every point of damage possible in any scenario possible, and that could be a way to do it.
Choose soon. So many options.
I mean, I don't think Beaker Lightning's ever getting there, and Siphon Soul is really the consideration there. I don't think you need to worry about that kind of hard removal. I think you take Grim Rally. Giddy up!
Siphon Soul's a long game kind of play, and you're not winning in the long game.
Oh, no.
Not at all.
You need to shorten the game.
Yeah. And Grim Rally is the only card that does that.
Now here, Saiyan has the Hecklebot, and Hecklebot, if it pulls Leroy, is just about going to end the game. I think without Leroy, A8 has almost a 0% chance.
Now, taking a look at the minions that are left in A8's deck, Blink Fox, Underbelly Fence, Evil Miscreant, Edwin Van Cleef, maybe a second SI7 agent, plus Leroy. There's a lot.
That probably does need to be taken care of, though.
Van Cleef's pretty good. Gets a Hex from the Bewitched.
Saiyan has a number of ways to take care of this, too. Whether he wants to, roll the dice on Lightning Storm and perhaps get a sap going, or if he just wants to Electra, Lightning Storm, and Overload for big, he's got answers any way you slice this. And so I think at this point he might officially be in the clear. Now, it's hard to say that when there's still Discover a spell effects that are there. Wow! Well, there's always that chance, too.
Nailed it. He had the zap to follow up if...
Look at Saiyan's face. He's looking up at A8 a little bit like, I'm sorry, bud. I meant to use the zap.
Hey, man, you okay?
I meant to use the zap here.
You all right?
Is that good? 3-point Lightning Storm. What does that mean? Did I break it?
When you show your friend Hearthstone for the full time, and they just get the stone cold nuts every game, and they keep showing you their phone and saying, is this good? That's just saying.
What's this weird border around these cards in Arena? This is the 3rd time it's happened.
Is killing your opponent on turn 4 good?
I've only done it like 5 times so far. You've been playing for 2 hours. Yeah, I mean, he's got to start working on this.
Time to giddy up. Got Shadow Step in hand, so this is triple Leroy territory.
Yeah, and so, A8 and kind of talking about the Walking Fountain earlier, this is exactly the scenario creating. Don't put minions in play. Don't let Walking Fountain be a big deal. And now you look back to that Witch's Brew that was used. I'm getting nervous. I'm getting awfully nervous because A8 has a lot of damage in hand right now. Leroy plus the Kobold Lackey. That's 8 right there. You Grim Rally off the Lackey. That's 9 damage on the Leroy. The Shadow Step makes that 15 damage, and then the Eviscerate makes that 19 damage.
Saiyan is the Grim Rally.
Yeah, Saiyan is under threat of lethal in this spot. Without healing, he's dead. Wow! Witch's Brew!
But does he go for it? That's the thing.
Yes, absolutely! That is a huge draw for Saiyan. You absolutely use Witch's Brew in this spot. No question about it. There's no doubt in my mind.
But
if you don't Witch's Brew in this spot, why did you show up to the World Championship?
But do you Totemic Might?
Probably not.
You absolutely Totemic Might here. If you don't Totemic Might here, why would you show up to the World Championship?
I'm never going to forget this cast. We're getting hyphy. I like it.
Yeah.
I'm ready to karate chop someone right now.
Please don't. I'm the only one within your vicinity. All right, so now how do you win? One copy of Shadow Step in A8's deck, and he's got it in his hand already, so his maximum damage is pretty much in his hand.
Yeah, I mean, things just got quite bad.
Yeah, no High Spear and Togwaggle as well, so no ability to kind of run away with things. He's played both Hench Clan Burglars, so not a fantastic way to get additional value that way.
The way that I could see A8 winning is with Evil Miscreant. Evil Miscreant gets an Ethereal Lackey. Ethereal Lackey finds a Vanish. You use the Ethereal Lackey and Leroy in the same turn. Vanish everything back to hand, and then you have Leroy and Ethereal Lackey loaded for the following turn, and maybe, just maybe, you've drawn the other Eviscerate by that point and chipped away.
Yeah.
That's about it, though. I mean, that is a very long-winded scenario.
Yeah, Daring Escape would work in that scenario as well.
The issue I think with Daring Escape is that your opponent might have enough pressure on board. Like, say Saiyan just decides to play a Walking Fountain here, which I think is quite reasonable. If he does that, what that means is A8 is going to be pretty forced to make something happen. Even just like generic minion pressure alone would probably be enough to do it. And now Saiyan's finding damage from Hagatha as well. So A8 is really in trouble in this spot. Probably going to have to wipe out this Walking Fountain.
What's the most efficient way to do it with stuff that doesn't go face? Backstab, Vendetta.
Oh, yeah.
Lackey, maybe?
I'd probably just use the Underbelly Fence.
Yeah.
It's not pretty, but again, the key is that you're going to have to maximize your damage from hand. And maybe that's impossible, and you need to fight for board in some capacity. Maybe it's a spot where you end up using Eviscerate, and you start fighting for board with Backstab and the Lackey and the Underbelly Fence. This is another one of the reasons why Underbelly Fence is in here. But this plan just doesn't work. Saiyan's got the goods to take this down. And now that he's seen that damage used, that he's seeing this damage hit board, that he's seeing this chip damage not go face, he's feeling super good about this one.
Yeah, A recognizing that his only way to win with having to expend these resources is to stick a board and get recurring damage. And hope that Justsaiyan has a handful of Totemic Mites.
Yeah, that just doesn't work really well.
No, it doesn't.
You can see how this Shaman deck is meant to tackle aggressive builds. Yeah. It's by attacking them back. And as soon as they do something to push back, you blow up their whole board.
Yeah, and Margoth plus Feral Spirit here.
Some good.
Build your own Rainatoads, effectively. Bootleg Rainatoads.
This one's actually kind of better.
It's better. You overload for 4, but you get 1 extra attack plus a little bit of extra total health and attack.
Ooh,
actually, it's the same amount of health, just a little bit of extra total attack.
I was trying to think if Electra could do any. Oh yeah, this is desperate times.
Yep.
I'm actually curious what card, like maybe like Hagatha. If he got his own Hagatha, could that ever do anything?
Stormbringer.
Rare. This is a rare concede situation that we've seen from players who are not in total out of the game, just very far behind.
But we're pretty much out of the game there.
We're looking that can really fight against the power turns from Saiyan, and so I think when you look at it in totality. Edwin Van Cleef, really the card for Saiyan that A8 really doesn't have a check to. But we're seeing a Zoo versus Rogue up first. And this is a matchup where when I have encountered it on ladder playing Rogue, I'm not sure what to mulligan for exactly, because I feel like all my cards are quite good against the deck.
Yeah.
But which ones are the best?
Yeah. One thing to note is A8, I feel like, has definitely built his Zoo Warlock with Rogue in mind. I think it is, both of these Zoo decks are two of the most efficient in the format with what he's trying to do. He has 2 copies of Soulfire. He also has a Bloodsail Corsair, plus the Serenite Taskmaster. So, and no Archvillain Rafam. Saddle, you can relax backstage wherever you are.
Take a breather.
Take a breather.
Well, I'll tell you what, both players have some pretty darn good opening hands. A8's got turn 1 Flame Imp into Knife Juggler and double Magic Carpet now.
Double Magic Carpet.
Saiyan has Coin Evil Miscreant with a South Sea Deckhand on 1 to combat the Flame Imp. So South Sea Deckhand, pretty darn good draw in this spot. You know, Backstab maybe a little bit better, but the Deckhand challenges it right away, and it also denies A8 from playing Knife Juggler on this turn unless he wants to trade. And A8 doesn't want to trade.
But Voidwalker does protect this a little bit. The problem is he doesn't have another 1-drop to back it up, so the play feels really weird.
Yeah, this is very strange territory. I probably would be opting for Voidwalker in this spot, but if you Voidwalker and you run into a Backstab here, and so now Saiyan, his hand is a little bit clunky with the Miscreant and double SI and no 0-cost card. I think in this spot, I'm probably still coining Evil Miscreant, but I think there's a lot of merit to coining out an SI7 agent in this spot.
Yeah, the problem with Evil Miscreant is...
now you look at this South Sea Deckhand and you go, boy, I wish I had this in hand.
Yeah. But you see it, that turn 1 Flame Imp, and you have South Sea Deckhand, you're playing it every time.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy. We're looking at Tempo SI coming up.
But A8's looking at a hand with no 1-drops currently.
It's a true story.
And if he Tempo SI trades over this and A8 doesn't find a way to deal with one of these SIs, his Magic Carpet dies.
Now, the issue I think I'm seeing with that is that A8 has another Magic Carpet in hand. And so there's 2 copies of Soulfire in A8's deck. He's actually one of the few Zoo players who's opted for the double Soulfire, double Sea Giant package.
Yeah.
If he draws a Soulfire here, Magic Carpet and Soulfire now puts 2 Magic Carpets in play that are unchecked from Saiyan's side. So he has the Waggle Pick to start fighting back, but that means a Magic Carpet lives. That is a really key draw, I think, if A8's going to win this game. A 1-drop would have done the trick as well.
I think a 1-drop would have done the trick much better.
The point I'm getting at is that there are 2 additional things. Like, the Soulfire doesn't take place of a 1-cost card, or it doesn't take place of a 1-drop in this scenario. Like, he's not just going to jam in, like, I don't know, 2 Stone Tusk Boars or whatever it is. Like,
ooh, that's a good idea.
No, it's not. But the point is, that card normally is like a tech option in a different slot. He just went, you know what, I don't want any tech cards, I want damage in its purity.
Yeah. Now, the hole in that logic is that that's assuming he would get through all 30 cards in his deck.
Sea Giant goes away. I think that's one you're not sad to see go away. I think you'd much rather have the Knife Juggler. And Saiyan now, you saw the raise of the eyebrows if you were watching his camera. This is a pretty dangerous situation.
Yeah. But, I mean, Saiyan just has so many draws coming
That
up.
is not the right one.
No.
That's not the right one. And so A8 has to make a decision here. Do you life tap and try to find a 1-cost minion, or do you try to juggle off the SI7 agent? I think if I'm A8 in this spot, I'm going to life tap, because Saiyan's still got 4 cards in hand and has a Waggle pickup. And I think that you're going to have something go right to win this game. You also have the Jin draw from Bloodsail Corsair. If you get Bloodsail Corsair in this spot, you might be in the clear to just outright win the game.
It's only 1 copy. Half of his deck currently is 1-drop minions. So he has a 50% chance to hit a 1-drop minion with how many he's played. And 1 in 22 is the Bloodsail Corsair draw.
The juggle! Nails the juggle, and that's a big deal. Saiyan now probably has to expend and eviscerate this turn. I think if I'm in Saiyan's spot, I'm looking at eviscerate Evil Miscreant, attack the Magic Carpet with the Waggle Pick.
Miscreant?
Yes, because a Miscreant in hand is worth a lot on board. However, you do have the option for the Greenskin. I wasn't really thinking about the Greenskin and just attacking the Juggler.
He would need to draw a runner, one drop
That's not necessarily true, I don't think.
to deal with the green skin. is what I mean.
Soulfire?
Soulfire, yeah, but he's already seen one Soulfire. I think it's obviously more likely that he
One
draws.
drop in Direwolf Alpha? I mean, I think that this green skin has a lot of backfire implications.
But one drop in Direwolf Alpha means that we'd have to trade in the damage from the Magic Carpet, which means he doesn't protect it on board. Oh, no, he doesn't. He trades in the Scarab Egg and then plays the Argent Squire to trade over the Captain Green Skin.
Correct.
It's exactly 4 damage. He still is able to push 2 with the Magic Carpet and keep it at 6 health with 3 1/1s,
And
a
now
2/1, and a Direwolf.
And now I'm worried for Saiyan because the miscreants are delayed. I think the sooner you get the lackeys, the sooner you have major board implications. And I think that sacrificing the Waggle Pick and the green skin value is smarter because this is the style of play that Zoo wants to prey on. It's your opponent plays 1 card and you play 2.
Yeah. Now, Saiyan does have double Phantom Knives in his deck, which is not always the case with these more aggressive Tempo Rogue
Face
lists.
first. There we go.
The light protects me.
Strong technical play throughout the series, honestly. Like, I have to commend them on this because I think that in this series, it's the strongest technical play that we've seen thus far. So now Saiyan has Eviscerate, Evil Miscreant, Waggle Pick attack, and either use another Miscreant or a Lackey. And so he has a number of options this turn.
Yeah, he's very likely to get a Lackey that deals with the Magic Carpet. He needs the Rush or the 2 damage.
So he gets the Miscreant first, obviously.
All right, well, didn't get either of them.
Ethereal Lackey can find Backstab or it can find Preparation. And honestly, bouncing the Ethereal Lackey is pretty close to bouncing the Miscreant in this spot.
Yeah.
He's going to go for Faceless, though, which means he's not using the pick this turn. I'd be pretty shocked if he used the pick there.
Yeah.
And now we're looking at Grim Rally being big. Sea Giant's a big draw. I think that the tempo turn with the green skin might have set Saiyan back just enough to be able to lose this game.
Yeah.
Oh, and the Sea Giant.
cost!
The Sea Giant's 1 cost,
one cost!
because of the exact reduction. That is a massive deal. That is such a big deal right now. And honestly, A8, I think at this point, I mean, he's just so far ahead. Saiyan needs to pick up Phantom Knives.
He needs Phantom Knives and Sap off the Ethereal Lackey.
Goodness gracious. Yeah, A8, take your time here. You have plenty of time left in this turn, and you need to figure out how on earth iterations go that you lose this game.
Yeah, I think he's got Phantom Knives on his mind, so I don't know if he wants... okay.
I don't think he... right now, I think A8's going, my opponent could draw Phantom Knives, but I know they don't have it right now. So I need to maximize immediately and kill them before they draw it.
Yeah.
The Magic Carpet's done its job. So you
Phantom
don't care about
Knives
the
would have
Waggle
come
pick.
down on the previous turn.
Yes, absolutely.
Almost certainly.
Thug, not a good draw right now. Ethereal Lackey can get Phantom Knives, though. Not it.
Can deal with the Sea Giant.
Float 2 mana.
Well, he can attack with the pick and get the Ethereal Lackey again.
Yeah, I mean, I'm taking Eviscerate in this spot.
In fact, he could attack first and recheck with the Lackey.
Yeah, I imagine you're going to go for an Edwin situation here. Something to note is that A8's board is actually full. I was curious if the 5 damage to face could have been better there specifically for Edwin. Walk the Plank doesn't work because the Sea Giant had Rush.
It had Rush!
That is
my
a
goodness.
massive deal.
What? You said it was a big deal already because it was able to attack over the 1/5 and keep that around. But this just makes it even that much better. The fact that Saiyan would be able to walk the plank.
He's going for the Togwaggle scheme here because the only way that he's going to get out of this is Edwin Van Cleef. Eviscerate, create the 0/3 taunt for some extra health. You scheme back the Ethereal Lackey, not a bad draw. You jam an Edwin Van Cleef on board.
How big is it? 12-12?
It's very large.
Is it large enough?
Abusive Sergeant, Bloodsoul Corsair. Pretty low quality turn here.
Wait, that's 10. That's 13 damage to face?
Yeah, Grim Rally would have ended it here. Direwolf Alpha would have ended it here. Evil Genius had a chance to end it here. There's a lot of draws in A8's deck that are pretty darn large right now.
So he's got to trade over this 1-1.
So the thing I'm thinking about is if A8 leaves up a 10-10 Edwin, what combinations does he actually die to?
That's what I was saying.
He dies to Leroy Shadow Step in that instance.
And if he doesn't clear up this 1-1, he dies to Leroy Eviscerate. So I
wonder if you can justify killing the Edwin in this spot. Like, can you kill the Edwin and still win an equal percent chance of time here? I don't think so.
I think you kill the 1-1 and then you play around Leroy Eviscerate.
Yeah, I think Leroy Eviscerate's what you can play around, so that's what you do play around. And at this point, the attacks have been made, so there's only one thing left to do. And second Henge Clan Thug is drawn. A8 is on the verge of winning here. I cannot think of how the lackeys win this game, but by golly, it seems like there's always a chance. If you got two 2-drop lackeys,
or double Ethereal Lackey and get Prep Fan and Knives.
Wow. So close to being able to stabilize. One extra point of damage. The Magic Carpet on the Sea Giant meant so much this game. It's unbelievable.
It's absurd how much it means.
2-1 lead over Saiyan.
And I said it earlier, these players, when I asked them backstage, they said 51% to
championship we've had has had a stacked field. Now, that being said, I think in the past there has been clear favorites and there's been clear underdogs. And I think at this tournament, if you really dig in and break it down, you can find favorites and you can find underdogs, but it's not very clear. And I think there's arguments at every step of the way. I think this is the strongest field we've had at a World Championship. I think players who are playing this year have taken it about as seriously as you possibly could, I think, coming into the tournament. And that sigh of relief, I think, is, oh my gosh, I actually did it.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you just look at the system in itself, one, there was more competitive players than ever before. Two, in order to be hyper-competitive and get the points needed to consistently qualify for playoffs, especially from Europe, you had to travel to tour stops. You had to get big finishes at large-scale events with pretty much the caliber of player that you would expect in a playoff, at least once you get to those top Swiss cuts. So just the path that all the players had to take here, I would expect nothing less than the most stacked field we've ever seen.
We got a Zoo versus Rogue matchup. The roles have been reversed now. A back on the Burgle Rogue package with the Vendetta's Henge Clan Burglars and Blink Foxes included in the deck. 2 backstabs drawn now. Woo. And I'll tell you what, he was already on coin with the SI7 agent. You pack on 2 backstabs to that, and you are looking at some massive board swing potential on A8's side. Now, he has run into a bit of a peculiar situation here with the Crystallizer and the Scarab Egg, and Saiyan having the Microtech controller. There's only 1 copy of Fan of Knives in A8's deck, and right now, his hand is missing a value generator. It's got lots of ways to actually fight for board, very few ways to actually generate additional resources. And so I'm a little concerned with him picking up one of those sooner rather than later, because if he just has to expend all this stuff, Saiyan's going to have life tap, A8's going to have just minions and spells to sling at the board. And that's typically how we've seen Rogue die in the past. It's just minions and spells and not really much else to do. Pretty fantastic turn here, though, I think, with the backstab and the waggle pick. You have to use like your last 2 combo activators. But you have Waggle Pick set in play as like a value generation tool, and you have SI7 Agent and Underbelly Fence to fight with in this spot. So I think overall, A8 can justify a lot of plays here, and I think waiting is also a reasonable play to justify too. This is probably one of the toughest turns that he's going to have this game.
Yes, it's very similar to what we saw from the previous game where he was on the Zoo and Justsaiyan was on the Rogue. The hands are similar with SI7 Agent, Waggle Pick, plus some removal spells, and I'm going to go with I wouldn't even call it a mana utilization play just because he voted a mana and Waggle Pick wouldn't have, but it's keeping the coin to be able to combo Activator for SI7 Agent and not have to use Waggle Pick charge inefficiently to bounce the SI7 Agent back to be able to activate.
Right. And now when A8 sees the second Magic Carpet, things are now starting to get pretty dicey. You don't have Fan of Knives. You don't have a value generator still. You're going to have to rely on Shadow Steps to keep fighting for board in this spot. And a Magic Carpet now sticks to the board. I think A8 is officially worried.
Yeah, the amount of resources that you have to expend to deal with Magic Carpet, even if Saiyan gets no value out of it, which it doesn't look like he's going to get tons of value out of it, just getting a Backstab, an Eviscerate, next turn probably a Waggle Pick Swing plus an SI7 Agent Battle Cry. That was essentially 4 cards to deal with 2 cards from Saiyan, which means he's sticking other minions on the board.
Yeah, and so Saiyan's options now really need to be considerate of life tap. You know, when do you need to start life tapping, and how many cards are you actually going to need? And in this spot, you know, is it Microtech Controllers or is it Mecharus? And I think it's definitely Mecharu because you have the Magic Carpet in play, but that takes away some of your rush ability. But that's what the deck is built around. It's built around lots of 1-cost minions so that you can get this value immediately. A8. Without a big pickup here, he's looking like he's in real trouble.
Yeah, and the other reason why I like this play...
That's a big pickup, though.
...is because he expects Magic Carpet to be dealt with. There's a Waggle Pick, he needs to find 2 damage, which is pretty easy. You have Evil Miscreant, you have SI7 Agent, you have Vendetta in this deck with some kind of activator. There's so many things that would deal with it. Holding on to the Microtech Controller gives you a much more powerful burst potential with Grim Rally, with a Scarabag target already on board. So holding that in hand gives you that option.
Ooh. Really awkward pickups for A8 in this spot, too.
But that's his deck. There's nothing else he can get.
Dread Corsairs.
Dread Corsairs.
You're looking 2 copies of Dread Corsairs.
This guy's toast.
But that's the risk you take when you build your deck like this.
True story. Magic Carpets demanded a ton of resources from A8, and now Saiyan, he's got a lot of pressure going this turn.
He's tapping for that Grim Rally.
Yeah, I mean, Grim Rally is really, I think, the reason that Saiyan started life tapping last turn. And so here, Microtech Controller puts A8 in that situation where it's like, you need to have something because this is scary.
No spells in hand for that prep.
If he had prep last turn,
would have been quite a bit better.
But this is a nice reasonable turn 6. You have the Animal Companion. In my head, this is just always a minion.
Prep Animal Companion SI7 Agent would...
Well, Underbelly Fence. You want to use the Underbelly Fence here, I believe.
Huh.
I think justifying a dagger up is tough because I definitely want to prep Animal Companion this turn.
This is yeah, the Underbelly Fence because he's used a Hench Clan Burglar. He doesn't have another raiding party. He has no other Hench Clan Burglars or Blink Boxes in his hand currently. You're right. I think this would be maybe the last opportunity he'll ever have to rush the Underbelly Fence. While prep Animal Companion into SI7 Agent is...
You can Shadow Step the Underbelly Fence here, too. I think it's very reasonable. And so if you're going to do that, the dagger makes a little bit more sense. Because now you can still draw Vendetta, and you can still draw another Underbelly Fence to make sense of this. But I think overall, this is a stronger spot.
Oh, yeah, this is much more powerful. Much more powerful.
All right, well, Juggler, this is what Saiyan has really saved it for. A lot of times players play Juggler on turn 2, hoping to get a snowball payoff from it. I think oftentimes it's much wiser to save it for situations just like this one.
Well, this is insane. He gets 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 potential juggles. He won't have board space for that.
It's a lot of juggles.
So he's going to get 6 juggles, it looks like. Because he pops open this Scarabag, he gets 3 from that.
Yeah, so
he got 1 from the Abusive Sergeant.
He should have led life tap because of that. Oh boy, that's a massive draw. Oh my. Oh my. A8. This might lose him the game right here. This is ridiculous. This is not good for A8.
So it's trade Grim Rally.
Almost out of time.
I think you might Grim Rally first.
To get the extra juggle?
Well, you get the chance to juggle, but more importantly, your Mecharus actually kill the board in this situation because you're not worried about... Wow! You're not worried about Phantomizing in that spot anymore. And that's the sequencing you're going for. You maximize juggles into
Wow.
play.
You said it before, the technical play in this game, the last turn from A8, finding the most optimal way to clear the board or to get it as best of a board position as possible. Then this turn, just saying finding the sequencing with the rope burning to have the maximum potential for him to clear the board.
I'm not 100% certain that was max, but, you know, my
Wait.
quick, crazy math says it was. Your opponent needed a point of damage in that spot. A8, if he
But
goes
the-
face twice,
So point of damage is only Soulfire. His
Right.
board is full.
Grim Rally as well.
Grim Rally as well. Okay, fair point. So one Grim Rally, one Soulfire.
And so in this instance, Saiyan would have gotten it. But to go on that point, 2 Waggle Pick hits to face would drop Saiyan to 17 and then to 13. If you pick up a Leroy with that, you don't have the mana to use it and the SI7 agent.
The SI7
So-
agent costs 1.
Right, so he would have to SI7 agent that turn with the Waggle Pick, and he'd have to go face with the SI7 agent in that instance. If you're playing the SI7 agent, it means your opponent can trade in and then play additional minions.
You're
so
right.
then the extra outs for lethal go up to Evil Genius, to Direwolf Alpha, to another Knife Juggler, basically any minion in the deck because there's a Knife Juggler in play.
Yeah. He would have been 1 damage off.
Correct.
And so just saying, with a full board, wouldn't have tapped, most likely, because he would have been thinking about those breakpoints because of that. So yeah, I do like the trade. It makes sense. Either way, he has a very low chance of winning the game.
Oh, yeah, it's a nigh impossibility at the stage you got to, and that's that Fan of Knives that
Little
you
late.
need. You need it right away to try to get your opponent to go wide on board and then capitalize a Fan of Knives.
Yeah.
In this matchup, it's been very clear that Saiyan has been focused on landing a Grim Rally the turn that he goes wide on that board. And so that's where the Microtech controller allows him to extend in instead, and the Mecharoos allow him to also put the test to that as well.
Yeah. So his outs there were Blink Fox into Shriek.
Well, hang on a second. Second SI7 agent is a massive draw for A8, where now he gets to wipe out Knife Juggler, Waggle Pick gets to put this SI back in hand, and you get to SI again. So you're dropping low, but there's a chance.
So Soulfire's gone.
This guy's toast.
He doesn't have Leroy. No Magic Carpets.
Wow.
Microtech controller, though.
That's such a big deal at this stage, too. It's just number of bodies, and there's no Fan of Knives left.
and
And that lets him play the Sea Giant!
package!
This is the package they were trying to create because the 3 mana that you invest in a Microtech controller
Job's done.
pays off to the Sea Giant. It's very akin to the way that the Happy Ghoul healing decks were built.
I do.
Game 5.
Just saying, delivers the package to finish off the game, and I think there's no other way that this series could end.
Demanding of every facet of every single turn. You not only have to have good game plans, but you also have to execute them in the maximum way possible. It's just a lot of little things that's tough to do over the course of a 5-game set. And I totally agree with you. With saying it just feels like we've been seeing it all year long.
And if you really, really love Hearthstone, and I'm saying you love Hearthstone more than anybody else in the world, go back and watch that finals between A8 and Bunny Hopper. Or
It's grueling.
if you really, really, really love Hearthstone, go back and watch just the top 8 of that tournament because it was long.
And if you really,
Really long.
really love Hearthstone, go back and watch every single match that has taken place this year.
Well, Justsaiyan alone has played over 200 matches of Hearthstone in the HCT circuit in 2018, 2019.
That's basically a Netflix binge watch.
Not all of them are broadcast, but it would take you a while to watch even just the broadcast matches of Justsaiyan from the past year.
Yeah. Now we're in a Rogue mirror match. A8 on the Burgle variant of Rogue, which has some upside with stuff like Blink Fox, but also some downside with some stuff like Vendetta. And Saiyan on the face Rogue in this situation. And you saw Saiyan mulligan very aggressively early on. And, you know, you're seeing Raiding Party and 2 Waggle Picks in hand. I honestly don't think this is that bad of a deal for Saiyan. What that means is he has the assuredness that he has Waggle Picks. He doesn't necessarily have to invest Raiding Party mana in them. He's got a pretty straightforward game plan. The Waggle Picks alone represent 16 damage. Not very much more to go after that.
Even if one gets used, they still represent 12, at least. And the problem for A8's hand is that he's got a great way to fight what Jutsaiyan's going to do. The problem with that is Justsaiyan doesn't care. He's just going to keep shipping damage to face, and eventually he's going to get there. Doesn't even need to use the prep because he's got both waggle picks.
Yeah, I was kind of interested in this turn. In my head, like, the prep represented 2 points of damage, but what it really represents later on is more mana. And having extra mana oftentimes means damage that you would not have otherwise had access to. So I think that being patient, not giving your opponent a minion to backstab and then combo off of something, very wise play here for Justsaiyan. And again, with the amount of damage that he has packed in deck versus A8s, this is the way I think you're supposed to approach this. From A8's side, he doesn't have the option to get aggressive. And so I think that's just really struggling where his gameplay is concerned. I think against excellent rogue players, you're going to find they do this a lot. And against your inferior rogue players, you're going to see them play minions and try to tempo out stuff and get ahead. You're going to backstab and prep eviscerates, make big Edwins, use underbelly fences effectively. A lot of ways to fight back. Take it slow when you're on the aggressive ones, when you're in those mirror matches, and hope that you can tempo them back.
A8 just drawing removal. That's it. Weapon removal, minion removal. There's no way to be proactive.
They're very good cards, but you need to get something going in A8's position because he does not have the same access to burst. He has no waggle picks right now, and his deck doesn't have deadly poisons and Sousy deckhands in them. So if you ooze this weapon right here, you're inviting Saiyan to have one of those big tempo turns. You can't necessarily answer back because your removal doesn't build to anything. Like, if you draw Edwin next turn, that'd be great. If you draw Evil Miscreant, that's good. You have ways that you can start compounding the pressure, but without being able to compound the pressure, this is a pretty mediocre play, all things considered.
Yep.
And you can see them hacking away with daggers turn after turn. That was actually the only thing I think I disagreed with on Saiyan pretty much the entirety of the set. On turn 2, I just would have attacked with the dagger. I would have swung it.
Missed the point of damage. Double waggle pick in hand, what are you going to do?
Well, I'm not going to play the waggle pick.
I'm not going to play the waggle pick on 4. I'm not going to get efficient damage with this dagger. Though it did give him options. That's obviously the reason why. If he did have to deviate, if A8 had a hand that said, I just need to play minions and not play weapons yet. But when they're doing nothing, Justsaiyan's like, sure, I'll hit you for 4 for free.
Yeah, and now, honestly, with A8 having Shadow Step the Acidic Swampoo's last turn, Saiyan is in a pretty awkward spot where he knows the second waggle pick's going to get checked, and that mitigates a lot of that damage I was talking about. You know, from Saiyan's perspective, he was representing 16 from hand. A8 has now cut that down to 8 damage and threatened tempo plays. So I think Saiyan is in a position here where he doesn't necessarily have a strong way to approach these coming turns because he's struggling from the same thing. He has pressure, just doesn't have a way to compound it. So what else you gonna do? Chip away.
Yep. The Shadow Step on that ooze is really cutting into this game plan from Saiyan. He was saying, I'm going to play waggle pick. If you use it, I'm just going to waggle pick and roll that into a Captain Greenskin.
Yeah, it was a pretty heads-up play from A8.
Yeah.
You can see how much of a difference the Swampoo's makes in a mirror like this and why it's such an important card to his Burgle Rogue. Is because he doesn't have that burst damage, it means he needs more time. How do you get more time? You blow up the waggle pick. Sometimes twice.
I'm not sure if time is on his side. I mean, if you look at the late game, it's effectively the same, with Saiyan having a slight edge because of Myras.
It's not on his side, but it's like an inflection point.
Yeah.
I would say like if turn 8 is probably up to that point Saiyan favored. Turn 9, turn 10, maybe A8 finds his edge there. Afterwards, I think it drops off again. But being able to get to turn 9 and turn 10 is the tough part. That's where you need something like a Acidic Swampoo's or a Zilliax or what have you to fight against those game plans. If you're playing a Burgle Rogue variant.
Yeah. No Zilliax in A8's deck. We talked about how he didn't go for like all-in Burgle tempo, no aggression style.
Ooh.
How much is this?
All right, first real tempo play of the game.
First kind of real minion played, honestly.
Exactly. I mean, most of it's just been like...
It's a Sousy deck cannon, that was it.
Yeah. I mean, Sousy Deccan did its job. It hit for 2 damage, threatened to do more, forced A8 to use a card.
The next draw from A8 is going to be huge. If he can get a minion that he can combo with the waggle pick, I'm thinking Evil Miscreant.
Oh, that's the juice.
That could swing the game.
Honestly, at this point, Edwin's a big one as well. Just the fact that you can get such a large Edwin from this position makes all the difference in the world. And honestly, I think the reason that A8 went for this 2-3 is because he saw one of the Phantom Knives expended, knew that backstab wasn't going to be a clean kill on it unless Saiyan had Phantom Knives #2. Miscreant gets picked up. Major draw. 2 faceless lackeys picked up. Saiyan going in. Millhouse Mana Storm. You get a 4/4 for 1 mana off of a battle cry of a battle cry. It's a lot of stuff you start putting together.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy.
And so Saiyan had to slow himself down. He was ready to just start going in with these lackeys and went, hey, you know what? I need to spend mana. I don't have that prep anymore. I need to keep working on my opponent's life total. I think very wise to slow down right there and just push the damage. Yeah. You know where that eviscerate's going to be aimed. Spend the mana now. Don't put the pressure on yourself later. I'll tell you what, Hench Clan Burglar would have been a pretty spicy draw this turn. Able to get development, you know, an X Factor card perhaps, and then have the Vendetta be for free.
But right now, he's got no valuable target for Wagglepick to hit. Dread Corsair is just really awkward with that card. Acidic Swamp Ooze isn't even going to hit a target. Like, it's just completely useless. Both these cards don't have any immediate impact on the board.
And that's really the thing with the Wagglepick from the Burgle side, is Saiyan can actually take advantage of it better because A8's damage wants to, you know, kind of contain the board until he hits an inflection point. He's been stranded with this in play instead.
Choose soon.
You know, what's he really going to do from here? And the Miscreant is so threatening right now.
Has to use a 4-mana Vendetta to kill that minion that was summoned from a battle cry of a battle cry.
Yeah, this is not pretty. Oh, boy. Oh, boy. This game's about to end real quick.
See what's in the box. Not Millhouse Mana Storm territory. And honestly, if I'm saying here, I'm probably using the Deadly Poison here to bait out the Ooze.
I think he's
But Dagger Up Sousy Deckhand is also just pretty good. But
yeah, I definitely agree with you on the poison to bait out the Ooze in this spot because you followed up with the Wagglepick. And that's just a damage overload at this point, and I don't think A8 comes back from here.
Yeah.
Well, X Factor card. None of them work.
Nope. Nothing good.
Prep Mass Dispel and Hope? I mean, what do you even draw at this point?
Edwin Van Cleef is just not enough. I mean, there's... might even be lethal damage on Saiyan's side of the board if he doesn't have a decent impact right now.
Saiyan's got 8, 9, he's got 11 in play. You can turn that to 8, and you're at 12. So you've got to kill multiple minions this turn. You can't do it with your face. You can get back the Burglar, maybe find something else.
It's 2 mana, so you have 2 mana left. Ooze is free, but...
you got to do something. I mean, it's desperate times.
Yeah. You can probably expect that there's another Wagglepick in hand since Saiyan just went with the...
Consecration! Now, is Consecration better than Explosive Trap? And I think it is because you get the discount on it.
Whoa!
And you get the immediacy, so your 4/3 stays in play. So X Factor turns out to be a real deal in this spot. I think I want to ooze the web.
The problem is, I'm pretty sure he has just a hard read that Wagglepick is in the hand because of how Justsaiyan just played Raiding Party on 3 with coin in hand.
Yeah, but it's kind of the same thing.
Yeah, this is going to draw 2 Dread Corsairs.
That's horrible for you. You need another X Factor. You need it now.
It's my X Factor, and I need it now.
Mass Dispel silences off the taunt. That kills the greenskin for you. You have Eviscerate. That'll kill the greenskin for you. How on earth do you get out of this spot? I don't know. Vendetta for free. I think you got to draw again. I just don't. SI7 agent. Oh, I need one more mana. Down to 8. No ooze left. Myra's drawn.
It doesn't
Pick
even
that
matter.
dagger up. That wins. It's lethal.
Oh yeah, because he bounces it back.
Saiyan, in a crazy 5-game series, is going to take down A8 in the initial match, move on to the winner's match, and send A8 down to that elimination spot. What a series.
What a series. I mean, I know A